In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about truth, belief, and evidence. Now, truth, belief, and evidence are all importantly related concepts, but they aren't as closely related as some people would think. The purpose of the podcast, then, is to try and sort out what the differences between truth, belief, and evidence consist in. Before we talk about truth, belief, and evidence, we first have to get a grasp on what a statement is. A statement is simply something that can be either true or false. So for instance, a statement could be something like, the sky is green. In this case, of course, the statement is false. The sky isn't green. The sky is blue is also a statement. In this case, we've got a true statement. The sky is blue. There's also statements, though, that are more relevant to the discussions we're going to be having in class that make statements about ethical truths. So for instance, murder is wrong. Many of us would think that that is a true statement, that murder is really wrong. Murder is right. Many people would think that that is a false statement. So a statement is simply something that can be either true or false. This makes it different in important ways from other sorts of things that we can say. It makes it different, for instance, from questions, from exclamations, and from commands. Think about it. A question. Is murder wrong? That can't be true or false. Or an exclamation. Ouch, that really hurts. It's an example of an exclamation. It's not true or false. That, ouch, that really hurts. That doesn't make any sense. We can't apply true and false to exclamations. And we can't apply true and false to commands either. If I tell you, complete the paper by Friday, that's not something that we can evaluate as either true or false. It's a command. It's not the sort of thing that can be either true or false. So then, questions, exclamations, and commands differ from statements in that only statements can be true or false. But what does it mean to say that something is true? Here's the way we're going to define truth in our class. A statement is true if the world is the way the statement says it is. Let me say that again. A statement is true if the world is the way the statement says it is. This just means then that the statement gets to be called true if it accurately describes the way the world is. The sky is blue is a true statement because it accurately describes the way the sky is. The sky is green is a false statement because it fails to accurately describe the way the world is. Now I want you to notice a couple things about the way that we've defined truth. First of all, whether or not a statement can be proved is irrelevant to the truth of a statement. Notice, I can't prove or disprove the statement there are an even number of electrons in the universe. But this statement is either true or false, even though it's the sort of statement that I can never and will never be able to prove. Notice something else. It's irrelevant to the truth of a statement whether or not anyone or everyone believes it. For consider, in 900 BC, everyone believed that the sun goes around the earth. But this statement is, and was, false. The sun didn't go around the earth went around the sun. So that's enough for talking about truth. Next, I want to consider a related but importantly different concept, evidence. Evidence consists in reasons for thinking a statement is either true or false. Now, there are a number of kinds of evidence. Probably the kind of evidence that we think of first, and that's maybe one of the more popular kinds of evidence that we give in favor of the truth or falsity of a statement, is empirical evidence. So empirical evidence is the sorts of evidence that we get from science, but also the sorts of evidence that we get from our everyday sensations. So the best evidence for believing the truth of a statement such as the sky is blue is empirical evidence, right? The best evidence for believing that the sky is blue, the best reason for thinking that that statement is true is to look up at the sky and see that the sky is in fact blue. But not all evidence is empirical evidence. Consider, for instance, statements such as, I feel sick. Now, you could go out and gather information about whether or not you do in fact feel sick. You could take your temperature, you could run some other tests. But if you did this, you would think, well, that's kind of misguided. The best evidence for thinking that it's true that I feel sick has nothing to do with whether or not I have a temperature, right? After all, I could have a temperature and not feel sick, or I could feel sick and not have a temperature. The best way to figure out whether or not it's true that I feel sick or that you feel sick is simply what we could call subjective reporting, right? It's my report. The best reason I have to think that I feel sick is the fact that I feel sick. Similarly, if you were to tell me that you feel sick, the best reason I would have to believe the truth of that statement was you telling me, I feel sick. A third kind of evidence I want to consider is what we could just call the meaning of words. So consider a statement such as, all bachelors are unmarried males. Now, suppose you want to prove the truth of that statement. I take it we can all agree that that is in fact a true statement. It's true. All bachelors are unmarried males. We would think you were crazy, though, if you said, well, the best way to gather evidence in favor of this statement is to go around surveying all the bachelors. So, Mike's a bachelor. Is Mike unmarried? Yep, Mike's unmarried. Steve's a bachelor. Is Steve unmarried? Yep, Steve's an unmarried male as well. And keep on going to all the bachelors we knew to try and confirm that they were all unmarried males. Now, you would rightly say that's the totally wrong kind of evidence you're gathering, right? It's taking up too much time. It's the wrong way to go about proving the statement bachelors are unmarried males. The best way to prove that statement is simply to grab a dictionary. The dictionary says what it is to be a bachelor is to be an unmarried male. That then is the best kind of evidence for that kind of statement. So what I want you to notice here again is that evidence is importantly related to truth. A statement is true if it accurately describes the way the world is. Evidence is reasons for thinking that a statement is true. What's important to see, though, is that evidence and truth are not the very same concept. This leaves us, then, with one last concept, belief. What's belief? Now again, belief has something to do with truth and evidence, but it's importantly different from these other two concepts. In particular, belief is a kind of attitude we can have towards a statement. So take a statement such as, murder is wrong. Now you may believe this, you may disbelieve it. There are also other attitudes you could take towards a statement. You could doubt it. You could wonder at it. You could be in awe of the statement. There are a number of different kinds of attitudes and relationships that we can take with statements. Belief is one of those relationships. It's a relationship of ascribing to it. It's a relationship of thinking it to be true. But it's importantly different from either truth or evidence. And I think we can see this and see how these three concepts come apart by taking a single statement. So take a statement such as, the sky is blue. What does it take for the statement to be true? Well, the statement is true if the world is the way the statement says it is. So the statement's true if the sky is in fact blue. Why should we think that the statement is true? Well, in this case, it seems like our best reason to believe the statement has to do with empirical evidence. We can open up our eyes, we can look outside, and we can see that the sky is in fact blue. So our senses, the empirical evidence, gives us evidence for thinking that the statement is true, that the statement describes the way the world actually is. Once we've given you evidence for the statement being true, and once we think that it is in fact true, what happens? Well, we probably come to believe the statement. We come to have a certain attitude towards it, an attitude that's importantly different, for instance, from disbelieving the statement. We come to believe the statement when we have adequate evidence for it. So that concludes today's podcast. What we've tried to do today is sort out the difference between truth, belief, and evidence, and to sort out what the difference between those concepts consists in.